Welcome to Escaping Purgatory, a podcast where we rewatch Supernatural and talk it through in the hopes that we can finally escape this show.
Join us each week and leave comments on upcoming episodes, and together we can escape Supernatural Purgatory.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I might sound quite croaky this episode because I have a cold, but
oh no.
Yeah. It kind of matches the energy of this episode though.
Yeah, so we're talking about season 3, episode 14, Long Distance Call. It was unimpressive. It was very bland. It really was. So usually, like, we write pretty extensive notes about each episode and points. About halfway through, I just stopped. I was like, well, there's nothing to talk about, really, apart from, like, what's happening in the episode.
Yeah. Which,
I know we do that anyway, but, like, it was not noteworthy, I guess. And you fell asleep.
I did. In my defense, I am sick. But yeah, around about the 35-minute mark, I think I had a good, 10-minute... Maybe not then. I woke up for the little conversation at the end. But I don't feel like I missed anything. This is really bad. It shows such a lack of dedication to the podcast.
But it was not a good episode, and I think I said last week that this episode got a better rating than Ghostbusters, and I don't know how.
Why?
Then maybe that one conversation that they have together, and I don't know, because it wasn't plot heavy. It wasn't. This was the Baba Yaga episode, actually.
I mean, perfectly placed to be a Baba Yaga episode too,
right.
Third episode from the end. I mean...
Yeah. There really wasn't much of substance. So it was written by Jeremy Kava and directed by Robert Singer, and I don't know what that tells us. I feel like this episode was definitely felt like a writer strike episode. It fell back to very basic supernatural tropes, this episode could have been in season 1, very easily been in season 1. I mean, even the phone call aspect of it, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Pluck out bugs, put in this one. It would have been fine.
And also, when I say this episode was dark, I mean, thematically it was as well as physically dark, visually. There were points in this where I literally could not see anything that was going on in my screen at all. It was just a black screen with some noises. And my room isn't even that light at the moment. And I would just... Season 1 vibes, but the worst season 1 vibes.
I do wonder if it was a scrapped script.
I mean,
and
possibly, yeah.
They picked it up because there was no one to write for them.
But yeah, it was bad. Should we get into it? So, I mean, this episode, it kind of starts... It very much reminded me... I don't know if they took this idea from, The Ring, which I think came out... Oh, it's way before this. I felt like The Ring's 2003. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's something about getting weird phone calls that just reminds me of that movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's also in Scream.
Oh, yeah, Scream. Which I've actually never watched. I probably should watch it at some point.
It's good. I did enjoy it. I did watch it recently, and I was like, because I'd never seen it either, and I was like, oh, actually, no, it's not bad. So if you find it, definitely watch it.
Yeah, I probably will at some point. I will say as well with this episode, there's just sort of warnings moving forward. There's a lot of suicidal references in this episode. So yeah, if it's not your jam, don't watch this one again. It's not worth it for the plot line.
Just listen to us describe the conversation that they have, and even that is not really enough to justify rewatching this episode.
Exactly. So there's a guy, he's in his study, he's getting a phone call from a phone, it's a landline, which first of all threw me, because I'm like, who has a landline anymore? And it's from a SHA 33, SHA 33. And I was like, Shabub? What? Is this ever explained? I don't think it is in the episode why it's coming through as a shub. Unless I slept through that part. I
think you might. It is because it's an old telephone number, a number that's not used. So I guess that's why it's coming up that way.
Okay, I feel like it should have some other reference though. It should spell something out significant, because it's just that spells it makes me think of the word shabby. I don't know why.
See, when I first saw it, I thought it said shame. I was like, that's weird.
That would kind of make more sense. Anyway, it says Shabubby.
Shabubby.
And this guy picks up and there's a woman on the phone and it sounds kind of like they're having an affair because she's like, I had to talk to you. And he's like, you can't keep calling me. It's all very covert. You know, it kind of gets weirder and weirder. He kind of puts down the phone. She rings back and is more insistent, like, I'm not going to stop. I love you forever. Why don't you love me? And you're like, okay, lady. And eventually he kind of gets annoyed with this whole back and forth and rips the phone out of the wall. Then it rings again, like, ooh, spooky. Yeah. You know, he doesn't pick it up again when he smashes it. He just sort of addresses the room and says, okay, Linda, who's the woman on the phone, you win. And then shoots himself with the gun.
Yep.
So yeah, super dark. So there's clearly something supernatural going on. Ghost phone. That's why I'm calling this episode. This episode should have just been called Ghost Phone.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just had ghost faces, so they can't have two ghosts.
Okay. I mean, I'm disappointed by that. But okay. They could have called it Spirit Phone. There's one in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They could have done that. But then it would have given it away. I don't know. It was dumb. We did get... and I think this is what made me think so much of season 1, because we got another blood splatter on this.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense at all, since the phone is on the floor.
That's very true. Like blood splatter analysis. He was stood up. Why is there? He was stood on the phone? Okay, fine.
And title card comes up, and we see Sam walking across the courtyard and approaching Dean, who sat on a bench. Dean's talking into the phone. Sam says, "So the professor didn't know crap." Which, what professor? Where are they? What's going on? Like,
this is never answered.
Not really.
They kind of explain that they've been talking to professors, but like, how long has it been since the last episode? Because they very clearly stated in Ghostface that they had 2 months left. So how long do they have now? That feels like pertinent information that they should have given us.
Yeah, definitely. Dean says, "Shocking. Pack up your panties. Sammy, we're hitting the road," which, okay.
So you two were talking a case?
No, we were actually talking about our feelings. And then our favorite boy bands. Yeah, we were talking a case.
Sam's confused at why they should be working a case, especially since they're so close to the end.
And we can't find Bella. We can't find the cult. So until we actually find something, I'd like to do my job.
Well, there's one thing we haven't tried yet.
No, Sam?
Dean,
no.
We should summon Ruby.
I'm not going to have this fight
She
with
says
you.
she knows how to save you.
Well, she can't.
Oh, really? You know that for sure?
I do.
How?
Because she told me, okay?
First of all, the thing that I noticed the most was that Dean's wearing the jacket again. Did you see the jacket? He hasn't worn that jacket in ages. And I just wrote, jacket's back. Does this signal some kind of insecurity? We've already equated the jacket with John and his appearance, and it does make sense this episode for him to be wearing it, but it's mostly only at the beginning of this episode. He does wear it a little bit later on. But we hadn't seen the jacket in just like such a while that I feel like it really stood out. Again, going back to like season 1 and 2 vibes.
Yeah, definitely.
When they kind of needed their dad. You're right, Dean's saying like they can't find Bella. What also here is like, Sam says they've talked to every professor, witch, soothsayer, and 2-bit carny act in the lower 48. And I was just like, again, it's quite interesting sometimes how in later seasons they just forget kind of all the stuff they claimed they did, because they're like, oh, we've talked to all these supernatural people, and that they never go back to any of these people in later seasons. Or like, oh yeah, you know, when Dean was trying to get out of his demon deal and you were no help then, but maybe you can help us now. Or, you know, having someone remember them from like, yeah, you guys were trying to get out of that demon deal like 5 years ago. I don't know. Sometimes the continuity annoys me.
So to me, what stood out is that they went to a witch, right? Yeah. They hate witches. Why would they do that? So one way that they could probably circumvent them like not remembering or not doing a recall is another hunter went after the witch. Because it's supernatural.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, it's just annoying sometimes. They're like, oh, we have all these connections in the supernatural world, but yeah, whenever we go to someone, they act like it's the first time we've ever met them.
It has that kind of, the 2-bit carny act feels very much like Faith, because obviously they didn't believe that this healer was real.
And like, isn't that something worth exploring? If they're going and finding faith healers to try and save... That would have been a more interesting episode than this episode of them actually going to these people and getting more and more like frustrated. That would have been a better plot episode, to see that there's no help for them at all, right? And kind of losing hope. And that sounds awful, and it would have been quite a depressing episode, but then so is this. And also, it would have put into context what's going to happen in the next, 2 things before the end of the season. I don't know why I'm so mad at this episode. I know why I'm mad at it, because you're right. It gives me big Baba Yaga vibes. And I'm mad at that episode too.
It's with such a limited amount of screen time, episode time, whatever you want to call it. I feel like for most of season 3, they've made the most out of every episode that they've been given. And this is not it.
Anyway, sorry. Back to the episode. Sam wants to summon Ruby because they've tried everyone else. And this is where Dean outright tells him that Ruby told him she definitely can't help. Again, keeping secrets. They kind of throw this in each other's faces because there was something... it was Lilith. Sam was keeping the idea of Lilith away from Dean, like hiding that from him. And he was pretty mad about that in Just in Bello. So now Sam's pretty mad that Dean was keeping the fact that Ruby can't help them from him, which I actually feel is a bigger deal.
What?
She told me, flat out, that she could not save me. Nobody can.
Right? Yeah. It's a bigger deal because they've been chasing around this country, and the whole time Sam's been thinking, well, it's not working out, but at least we've got Ruby in our back pocket. And
yeah, like, especially had Just in Bello happened with Dean telling Sam the truth, Ruby would not have been able to set foot in there, and like her whole little speech that she gave at the end, they wouldn't have taken seriously. I mean, it kind of sucks that this is when it's been told, because now it doesn't make sense that Sam would follow Ruby after she's just told like a blatant lie.
Right. I'm very confused by their relationship. I think I always have been, and why would he ever work with her again? Because this is this was the foundation of their relationship, was that she could get Dean out of this demon deal, and he has basically a non-reaction to finding out this wasn't true. He just says, you're keeping secrets from me. Like, Ruby's been keeping secrets from you.
Why? I mean, I can understand why he'd be more pissed at Dean, because obviously that's his brother than Ruby, and Ruby wants something. But yeah, the reaction was, again, the reaction's very season 1. Yeah. I don't know, this whole episode. So Sam turns away. Dean asks, where are you going? Sam just throws up his hands and says, I guess I'm going to Ohio. It does feel like little brother to older brother, like, damn it, I guess so.
Yeah, he's giving in to Dean, as usual. Yeah.
They get to the man's house. We learn his name is Ben. His wife, which we don't know the name of, very season 1. And she's again very frustrated, like, I've already gone through all of this, like, what else can I possibly tell you? So Sam goes over to the phone and starts pressing buttons on it, and then they ask what time the husband died, and she says 11. He like taps the phone. Like, it's not obvious what he's doing.
Yeah, it's because you used to be able to see all the calls you got through on a landline. So it'd be like what time it came through. So it's like, oh, it all matches up with the phone. Yeah. It's not anything like... It's basic detective work that should have been done anyway. Like, if you see a phone set up the wall and you think, oh, maybe this guy received a distressing phone call, before he died... Mm-hmm. Would another detective not check what the phone, if there had been any phone calls? And do you know what I mean? It's like basic police work.
Another thing, the phone is now off the floor, it's not bloody, and they're just touching it.
That's true. Why is it not an evidence back? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. Right. Okay, fine.
It doesn't help that I've been watching like a procedural cop show called The Mentalist. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I think so, yeah, I have, yeah.
So I'm like watching an actual detective show, and I'm just like, I mean, even in that show, they're horrible with evidence. They keep touching things without gloves. I'm like, why? Anyway.
I'm always reminded, right, the best show that did this was Luther, right? And he specifically explains, he says, when I walk into a crime scene, I put my hands in my pockets so I'm not tempted to touch anything. And I was like, that's the best explanation on a TV show I've ever heard. Like, I thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Why you walk around like that all the time? Also, Dean in this episode, he annoys me so much this whole episode. He's rude. He's like immature. Just...
Yeah, he's not... It's a bad episode. Like, I don't even want to talk about it, to be fair. It's like, it's such a... It's not good. It's really not a good episode. Basically, what they find out is that there was weird static. The wife one time overheard her husband talking and calling this person Linda. They didn't know who it was. But when she picked up the phone, there was no one on the other line. He was just talking to nothing, just static. They want to know who Linda is. We
cut to the motel room where Dean and Sam are staying. Dean has looked up Linda and says she's a babe, or she was. Sigh.
Which is, can I just say that's really gross? Because she's in high school.
Right. That is really gross. I didn't even clock that, and I should have done. I told you, he's a bad dude in this episode. He's written poorly.
I'm sorry to keep bringing this up. But... It does. It reminds me so much of season 1 Dean, like just going after, like there's something else that happens in this episode where he talks about like necrophilia, and this woman, like an attractive woman, walks by and like she makes a face and he just eyes her up. I'm like, we haven't seen that part of Dean since the beginning of season 3.
Yeah. Why is he this obnoxious? And I think they were trying to make him more of a likable character, and I don't know if it's just how Jeremy Carver, like, do you know what's going to be really interesting? I want to see how his character changes when Carver is showrunner, because I don't remember like fully how it changed, but maybe this is indicative of how it did change. And yeah, because I'm like, again, not super happy with how they wrote Dean in this episode. I think, again, he's immature, gone back way to like irritating big brother in season 1. You're completely right. And Sam's kind of like the sensitive intellectual type. What happened to all of his issues that he's having with sacrificing people and like the grey areas, but this episode doesn't have any scope for that either. So I mean, okay, sorry, ran over.
These little mini rants are going to keep coming through this episode just because
coming. So it turns out that Linda and Ben were high school sweethearts. They got hit by a drunk driver and Linda died. So, you know, she's clearly ringing him from beyond the grave. The phone number is unusual, as we said. It's the Shibabi. And so they're going to try, and Sam recognises it from an old telephone number from a century ago, like when the telephone was kind of first invented, I guess. They're going to try and put a trace out on it, but Dean's like, how do we do something on something that old? Which is how they turn up at the phone company. There's a guy walking them through. We don't know his name. They are posing as people from the higher up in the telephone company to gain access to this. They go down to the basement where I don't even know what this guy's job is. I don't understand also why it's just one guy.
I don't know.
Me and Annabelle
nothing is explained.
Exactly, yeah. Me and Annabelle were talking about this before the episode, before we started recording today. And Stewie in this episode is very much a stereotypical character. You know, he's kind of a geeky guy in the basement, sort of, you know, desk is just disgustingly dirty, looking at porn on computers. And it's just...
He's even styled in a way, like... in a way that, like, his hair is all really greasy and... like his clothes are all rumpled. Again, we don't know what his... Does it even say what his job is?
No, it doesn't say what his job is. He just works in the basement, presumably overseeing all communications for the whole state or whatever. I don't know.
He's got like a switchboard kind of thing. We don't know what his job is. We don't know why he's not taking care of himself beyond the fact that it's a stereotype. And then they put this stereotype on a minority.
Yeah. I think the problem is in this episode is that, you know, Stewie is the only person of colour in this episode, and they've chosen to sort of portray a negative stereotype of like the geeky weirdo in the basement. I think that is the problem with this. I think if you had more, I think if you had more diversity in your show, you could get away with some of this like negative, haha, it's funny because he's geeky kind of thing. But when it's the only person of colour in your episode, it just looks a bit, it's trashy.
Yep.
So they're going through and they go and talk to Stewie, and his boss kind of says about, what did I tell you about keeping this place clean, etc. You know, it kind of takes a little while for them to get his attention because he's not really talking to them at all. When the boss guy tells him they're from headquarters, he kind of turns around and talks to them. Dean kind of points out that he's looking at a website he is familiar with, bustyasianbeauties.com, which has not been brought up in a really long time. Again, why are you pulling this out the hat again? Okay. And, like, reiterates the fact that, like, yeah, he's totally into this and, like, definitely should pay for this service. And, like, okay, first of all, yeah, you should pay for sex workers' time. But also, that's not the positive thing that's coming out of it. That's not the message they were intending to convey. Sam hands in the piece of paper. He doesn't even really, like, reprimand Dean for, like, his weird comments in this episode. He just kind of looks resigned to them. This Stewie guy says, you know, oh, this number hasn't been in use for years and years and years, and he's not going to run it for them because it's pointless. They basically have to, like, threaten him in order to get him to do it by saying that they're going to report him to higher up. But yeah, he looks up for them and he says, yeah, there's been loads of phone calls from this number. Like, how has this even happened? Because it's really old. So yeah, they kind of follow this up because a lot of phone calls have been made to a certain number. So they're going to go find out that number. And they arrive at this house that has a family there. There's a guy and his son and daughter. And, you know, he says, like, I'm with the phone company. And you kind of see the daughter in the background talking, listening to them talk. Sam's asking in his, like, typical Sam way of, like, puppy dog eyes, like, have you received any weird phone calls lately? And the guy's like, no. But as he goes back to his car, the daughter comes out to speak to him. She's called Lainey. She calls him out and is like, you're not a phone guy. You know, you're wearing a cheap suit and driving a rental car. You know, asking about why he was asking about the strange voices on the phone. And Sam's kind of clocked that maybe she's got something to do with this.
Why'd you ask my dad if he heard strange voices on the phone?
Why, did you hear something?
No.
My mistake. Thought maybe you did.
Well, I didn't, okay?
Okay. Sorry to bother you. Because, you know, if you did, then I would have told you that I've been right where you're standing right now. Hearing things, even seeing things that couldn't be explained. Maybe I would have been able to help out a little bit.
Nothing about any of this interaction makes any sense. It's all really bad. Like you said, he was going back to his, like, compassionate, empathetic. Yeah. But we haven't seen that in a really long time. And I don't know, maybe... And, like, this teenager is being such a teenager. I was just like, a hard eye roll. Like, ugh. Which maybe is a good thing. But, like, what does that first sentence even... I couldn't even connect it to what he had previously said.
Because he's trying to connect with her on, like, I used to have visions too and see things I can't explain. And it's like...
That's like, not helping. She's not one of the chosen kids. Like, this sounds like what a line he would have said to Max or to Andy or to any of Ava, like any of those special kids. It's not something you would say to a if you said that to a teenager, they'd be like, okay, bye, weird dude. Like, they wouldn't...
Stranger danger.
Yeah, like, this is exactly stranger danger.
Like, anyway, this somehow gets through to her, this speech, like, about, I'm just like you. And she tells him that she's been talking with her mum on the phone, which is odd because she's been dead for 3 years. And Sam asks, how often does she call? And Lainey says, it's a few times, started a week ago.
I thought I was, like, crazy or something.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure, and you're gonna have to go with me on this, okay? You're not crazy.
Which is nice. It's a nice sentiment. You know, Sam rings Dean. Dean picks up. He's walking down a busy street. You know, he's been talking to a 84-year-old woman who's been having phone sex with her husband who died in Korea. So I think that's the 1950s. I'm really bad at history. So yeah, but has been dead a long time. Sam says, ew. And Dean says, it redefined my understanding of the word necrophilia. And like you said, a woman passes like, what are you talking about? Like, really gives him like a hard side eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of checks her out as he walks past her. What is this? I just know, I think words on this one, to be honest.
Do you think this is a way of being like, we're erasing Bella, so get ready for this, Dean?
Yeah, and possibly that they're kind of like, well, you know, he's not pursuing any other. Dean is free and easy and single, like just how you guys like him in the fandom. So don't you worry, Bella's not hanging around for much longer, possibly.
No.
The other thing, I mean, you could take it from a funny point of view, and something that we've said is that like they're always having these conversations in public and they never really get caught. And this time he was talking very loudly about it on the phone in a busy street, so he is getting strange looks. So I do kind of appreciate the fact that people are like, what is this dude doing? Like why is he talking about it on the phone? I think it's just kind of illustrating how weird their lives are, but that they can talk about this stuff like openly on the street and like not think it's odd they get weird looks from people, because he didn't look at that woman like she was looking at him strangely because he was talking about something weird. He was like, oh, maybe she's checking me out. But he didn't seem to equate what he was saying with the reaction that he was getting, which is kind of on Dean's level, actually.
Yeah.
I can go with that as a character trait. So yeah, I mean, Dean gets to the Impala and they kind of talk to each other and they agree that something is going down, but they're not sure what. And then Dean gets a phone call on his flip phone. I still love that he has a flip phone. And it's like 2008 now, and I definitely... Oh wait, no, I did. I was like, I definitely did still have a flip phone then. I was like, no, I definitely did.
Well, so flip phones stayed for a really long time in America. In England, I never had a flip phone. Actually, no, I did. I had a flip phone for like a couple of years. Then I got like, I didn't get a smartphone till much later, but I got like a normal looking phone.
Yeah, what? Sam?
Dean, is that you?
Dad?
And who's on the line? None other than John flippin' Winchester. So it's clear that Dean thought Sam was calling back because he just says, yeah, what?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't check the number, he just flips open answers. I
forgot that John's voice was in this episode. I did forget, and the kind of psychological effect that has on Dean. What's interesting is a lot of his interactions with John over the past few years before John died would have been over the phone, I feel, in my headcanon. Yeah. So it must trigger some kind of muscle response, reflexive psychological response in Dean to hear John's voice. And you kind of see it. He does kind of like straighten up, and it's weird. I don't like it. We've seen it before when he's called him, the same kind of reaction, and we do see it again here.
Again, in season 1, he doesn't get a phone call for a whole year. Mm-hmm. They keep calling him over and over and over again, but it takes a year for him to call Dean.
Yeah. So do you think there's always been, since John died, because it was such a long time for them finding him in season 1, there was like a part of Dean that's always been waiting for John to call him?
I think there was hope. Like, you hear the sentiment of like when someone passes, like you just want to call them up and just hear them talk, right? Maybe it's like a bit of a reverse of that. He wants John to reach out to him because they don't know what happened to his ghost at the end of season 2.
No,
like they see it, but then it like just disappears. They don't know if he went back to hell, if he went up to heaven, like, or anything like that, or if he's just a ghost in the world. Who knows?
This is it. Like, they know they freed him. Well, they know they didn't free him from hell, but they know that John's out of hell. So they must have wondered what has happened to him since. So maybe this isn't such a, it's shocking, but maybe some part of Dean was always expecting John to come back in some way or reach out to them. It's just bad for him that it's now.
So we're back in the motel and Sam's asking about the phone call. He says, what did he sound like? Which is a really dumb question. But I kind of understand what he means. Like, did he sound well? Did he sound... That's what he's asking, not like, did it sound like Dad?
I mean, that's also a valid question, though, because he is dead. So...
Yeah. And Sam asks, what did he say? Dean replies, my name. That's it. And then the call dropped.
Sam's obviously connecting this with the other ghost calls that are happening in the town. So he doesn't immediately believe this is John, I don't feel. He thinks it's something else. But Dean is kind of hopeful that it is John. You know, he's saying, like, what if it really is him? What if he calls back? Again, I'm not sure where this kind of hope is coming from, because I think Dean's generally very cynical and, like, good things don't happen. So why would I suddenly get a call from my dad when I, you know, actually kind of do need him because of the whole demon deal thing. But I think that is because perhaps they're running out of options, that maybe he thinks this is kind of like a, I don't know, some kind of last minute save that John's got for him, which is, you know, not outside of the Winchester experience.
No, not at all.
What if it really is Dad? What happens if he calls back?
What do you mean?
What do I say?
Hello?
Hello? That's what you come back with? Hello? Hello.
Sam is just like not having this. He doesn't, I don't think he wants this at all in any regards to kind of be back and involved with John in any capacity at this point. Sam definitely hasn't reconciled his feelings over John. I mean, Dean hasn't either, but Sam has definitely not.
Yeah, no, it's especially learning what he'd asked Dean to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you even confront that?
Dean just leaves, as he does, because he's not very happy with the kind of response he's getting from Sam. I think he expected Sam to be a bit more excited about this. I'm not sure.
He's, again, they're sort of not understanding each other's questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, because obviously Dean was asking Sam, essentially, do I tell John about the demon deal?
Yeah.
That's how I took it, like, as to say, what do I say?
Yeah.
And Sam's just like, hello, like, it doesn't matter, just talk to him, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just poor communication on their parts, because they're not asking the questions that they really want to ask each other.
Yeah.
As is most of Supernatural.
They just had an argument at the beginning of this episode about keeping secrets. Well, you keep secrets because you can't talk to each other like human beings. Like, come on.
It's all like, you know, single syllable sentences kind of thing, you know. It's really frustrating to watch sometimes, because you're right. What he wants to ask here is, should I ask him for help? You know, should I ask him about the demon deal? Should I tell him everything that's happened so far? But what actually comes out of Dean's mouth is, what should I say? Like, you know, it's not their faults, it's how they were raised, but I don't know, better communication.
Is this writing that was acted well on Jared and Jensen's part, or are we just projecting?
I fully think the poor communication is known in Supernatural. I mean,
That's true.
But to be honest, if you've looked about writer's intention, it seems like they just wanted Sam to have a snarky moment. I think we probably are reading too much into it, but I mean, they leave the room to do it. That's all I'm saying. There's room for interpretation because they leave the room to do it with lines like that. So we come back later, we see Sam sat on the sofa with his laptop in front of him. Dean comes back, and there's been no research happening that's been useful. But luckily, Dean has found a pamphlet for a local museum. It's the birthplace. So Milan, Ohio was the birthplace of Thomas Edison, which is such a stretch here. I'm sorry. It's like phones. Let's go find the inventor of the telephone.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I got the same thing. I was like, why would they go to Thomas Edison's place? And because we just see Sam scoff and be like, no way, you're kidding. There's clearly something in the pamphlet, but we don't see it.
Yeah. This whole bit with the museum is completely pointless, this whole episode.
It is. I think they just wanted to have that weird woman tour guide with doing a whole bunch of finger quotes and finger gestures in the air and stuff. It was dumb. But so they go to the museum and they go to the spirit phone. The fact that Sam and Dean think they can blend into a crowd is hilarious, because what happens is that the guy takes the group away and they stay behind to like inspect the spirit phone for like EMF, and there's no readings or anything.
Yeah.
And they stay there and then just like leave, presumably. Do they not know what they look like? I'm not even talking about them being attractive people. I'm just talking in physical build. They do not look like normal people. Like how many people are that tall all of the time? This is average height for a reason, people.
I feel so sorry for... Look, I'm apologising on Annabelle's behalf to all the tall people out there. You can blend into a crowd. Annabelle, you big meanie. My brother is 6'7", and he already feels self-conscious about his height.
So I am 5'8". I am very tall for a woman. So I know I can't blend into places. Like this is why I never wore heels, because then I'd be 6 foot, and I don't want to be 6 foot.
Everyone loves a giant lady. Come on now.
I want to be an Amazon.
Yeah. But okay, so you're right though. They don't blend into this tour group. They do look out of place in this tour group because of, I don't know, just something about it. The vibe they're giving off. They're too interested in what's going on, I think.
Yeah.
As they kind of like walk away from this, they see this guide and she is doing a lot of like air quotes.
What's with the quotey fingers?
And Dean's like, what's with the quotey fingers? Like it's a bad thing. And all I thought was like, you'll learn to love the air quotes, Dean, but only if they're from a hot angel.
Yes.
I don't know what that line just made me think of Cass.
This actually reminded me of a later episode where they essentially do the exact same thing, but like they destroy whatever in the museum. I don't remember what episode it was. But like they destroy the wrong thing, I think. Anyway, so I'm sure somebody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there are people with encyclopedic supernatural knowledge out there, and I both revere and fear them.
Yes. What I will say, if you do know what I'm talking about, the tour guide in that, or the guy showing them around, is like a tall, skinny, possibly balding white man, and he's showing them something, and then they destroy it like right in front of him. That's the vibe I'm getting. I could also be mixing lots of different TV shows together, but yeah, when I saw this, I was like, oh, they're gonna like first thing was like, oh, they're just gonna throw it on the floor or something and just break it.
Right. I mean, they find this spirit phone. It was his final invention, and apparently he was convinced it could communicate with the dead. They kind of stay behind as the tour guide goes off, and Sam gets out his EMF meter and it doesn't do anything. Dean says, what do you think? And Sam says, honestly, it kind of looks like an old pile of junk to me. And Dean said it's not even plugged in. And, they say maybe it's like a radio tower broadcasting the dead all over town. And, that it is 100 years old. But, like, why would it start working now? But they don't find anything. So at the end of this scene is Dean saying, well, if this isn't it, then maybe it really is John on the end of this phone. Which is, okay. There could be other explanation.
There are some leaps. There are some leaps happening in this. Someone's a little rogue.
I mean, yeah, it's like, oh, we haven't kind of padded out this whole phone thing. Whose phones? Phones. Okay, oh, yeah, okay, Thomas Edison. Let's just go see his thing. We're in Ohio, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go back to the motel again, and Sam is asleep, but Dean sat up, with a coffee in his hand, waiting by his phone. And it eventually rings and shows the shababy caller ID. I don't know why I'm stuck on this. So he takes it and he goes to the bathroom to talk to who he thinks is John. He asks him, like, is it really you? And John says it's me.
Dean,
Is it really you?
it's me.
How can I be sure?
You can't. Dean, how could you do it?
Do what?
Sell your soul.
I was looking after Sammy like you told me to.
I never wanted this. Never. You're my boy. I love you. I can't watch you go to hell, Dean.
I'm sorry.
I feel like there is room here to ask more specific questions, but the John on the phone does confirm that it's him, because he talks about, you know, how could you do it? How could you sell your soul? I do quite like this, because it does feel like John. It feels like something he would say, because nothing Dean kind of does is ever right in John's eyes, right? Because
this is true.
Dean's right. He's like, I was just doing what you told me to do. I was looking after Sam, you know, the mission. And John says, I never wanted this, never. You're my boy. I love you. I can't watch you go to hell, Dean. I mean, that should have been the clue to Dean, right?
Yeah. Like, why didn't... Remember when he was possessed by Yellow Eyes in season 1, and he was saying, I feel proud of you, and he was suspicious? Mm-hmm. Where's that suspicious suspect now? Like, you know.
Well, yeah. Why is he not questioning John? I mean, maybe he thinks that he's changed in his death, you know, to be...
Oh, dear.
to be... not. He's not proud of him, though. He's just saying, like, oh, I don't want you to go to hell. This wasn't what I wanted for you. But this is where I stopped sounding like John.
Yes.
Because I always thought, like, if John did find out about Dean selling his soul, he would have been really angry at Dean.
He would have had the same reaction Bobby did.
Yeah. Like, where's the anger? There's no anger here. I mean, John is an angry person. He would have got angry at Dean. Because he would have said, how could you do something so stupid? Like, you know, how could you let your brother get killed in the first place that you had to make that choice? Mm-hmm. That's how I've always seen it, rather than I didn't want this for you. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on John.
No, because he asked one son to kill the other. No. So the thing is, again, going kind of back to what you're saying with the anger thing. What you're saying with how could you let him get killed in the first place? Is like, well, I told you not to let it get this far. Yeah. As well. That's, you know, those are the kind of responses. And those are the exact reasons why Dean asked Sam, what do I say? Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when John came back up from hell and kind of did the whole pat on the shoulder, good job, son, that was... he might have not necessarily known that Dean had sold his soul, but they killed Yellow Eyes at any cost, and that's what John wanted. And that was a good job, kiddo. You did it. You know, before he moved on. It's weird to get this in here, and I don't know why Dean's so readily accepting it. I don't know why he's not questioning it more, other than maybe it's so close to the end for him now that he needs something to hold on to. I think that's the only explanation for this, right? I mean, that is the explanation we're given in this episode, for sure.
I don't know how to stop it.
Because if you break the deal, Sam dies, right?
What?
Oh, I know a way out. For both of you.
How?
The demon who holds your contract. He's here. Now.
Cut to another scene, and we're in Lainey's bedroom, and she's on her computer IMing people, like back in the day.
Hey. I don't use IM a lot. I use MSN Messenger. By 2008, it was... Actually, by 2008, it was Skype. MSN Messenger was dying by then.
Oh, that's true. And Facebook has just started to come out, but they didn't have messaging service right then yet.
No. We're still all poking people and sending each other weird, like, pictures of stuff.
You might want to clarify that.
That's true. Okay, no, not like that. It was like... So we used to have these weird little things. So it was like little games on Facebook where you could send each other like a pixelated, like a pixel art of like a burger or something. And like you collected them all by your friends sending them to you. Do you remember this?
No. So I refused to get Facebook for the longest time. So I think I might have missed that part. I also didn't have MySpace either because I was like, I don't want this stupid like social media stuff. I mean, I look at how I use it now. I'm like, yeah, I still don't want this stupid social media stuff.
I recently tried to track down my old MySpace account and I can't find it. And it's just like, one day someone's going to find those emo pictures of me and then it's all over, man.
I'm not even sure if, unless you go in the Wayback Machine, I don't know if MySpace is still accessible.
It is still a social media platform where it was when I last looked, but yeah, it's different now. I remember, okay, so let's get into this because this episode is just like, let's talk about MySpace for a moment. So I remember one picture I had on there, and I had red hair at the time, and like, I don't know what it was with the trend then, but I used to just wear eyeliner just for my under eye, you know, just to make you look like super tired. And I was in a stage of wearing a ribbon in my hair like Matilda, so like the bow on the top. And I had bought myself an old army surplus jacket because I thought I was cool, right?
See, you saying all of this, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. You had short hair too. You had like, I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly, right. I love that army surplus jacket. It was like one of those green canvas ones, and all the like. I wouldn't even say I was emo. I would say I was leaning more towards mod, right? Mm-hmm. Back in the day. The only reason I bring it up is I thought about this because in the last episode in Ghost Faces, Dean left his duffel bag at their place because it had that EMP bomb in it. And then in this episode, he gets the duffel bag back out of his trunk and it's like the same duffel bag. But I was just like, oh, it's just an army surplus duffel bag though. I bet they shop in like army surplus places all the freaking time.
I mean, of course. It's probably where they can get cheap ammo, clothing.
I mean, you can buy like, you know, I used to buy a lot of clothes there because they were generally hard wearing, like the jackets and stuff, and bags and things from army surplus places are good. They're good quality. If you're, I don't know, a teenage girl. I would say that jacket provided no protection from the like elements at all.
Oh no!
I used to be absolutely freezing, and it would look like a warm jacket, and it was not a warm jacket. It was just canvas and terrible. I wish I still had it because it still wouldn't fit me. It was like a large man's jacket.
So I guess the whole point is that you'd layer it, so that would be like your final layer with all your patches and your badges and all that.
You think that was I was not sensible.
You hadn't quite figured that part out yet. Like all of us, I think.
If anybody found my MySpace, what they would find is a grainy image of me wearing that, like not smiling, looking at the camera, like I am incredibly serious. Like this is an incredibly serious time in my life. It's so funny when you look back at your teenage self and you're like, you didn't even know what stress is. And as an adult, you just cope with it and it just kind of gets better eventually. Anyway, that was a detour.
Yes, it was. It was a great detour, though. Kind of. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about my teenage years. So she's messaging some, like, her friend, I guess. She says, see you tomorrow. And then Shababi username comes up.
I know where this has come from. I know where the Shababi has come from. There's a character on People Just Do Nothing, which is like a UK... It's about like some grime artist in London. It's really funny. Or I think they do jungle music. And there's Shabadi G is one of the characters.
That's funny.
And it's great. It's like a weird... If you've never watched People Just Do Nothing and you want to understand British culture, that's like peak British culture.
I will have to definitely really have a look for it. Because like, I've been... So after visiting you and like hearing grime on the radio, I was like, on yours, I think it was radio. Yeah, I've been listening to more of it. I'm like, this shit pops. I'm like, what?
But it's nice. It's a good TV show. Sorry, again, getting off track.
Shababi. She starts typing, and her mum asks, have you thought about what I said last night? She says she doesn't know what she wants. Her mum has said, I want to see you. Mm. So Lainey had gone to the cemetery and she said, the ghost responds, that's not what I meant. Lainey responds, but I'm scared. It's so weird to be like reading out text messages because we can't even put audio of this in apart from like her clicking the keyboard.
I know, right? Yeah, like as you're reading it out. It's like she's trying to convince her to do something. She's like, come on. I think it ends with like a screen turning black and just says, come to me, and like loads of letters like on the thing, which is a spooky way to say that. I don't like it. I don't like the phrasing. No. This gave me big X-Files vibes. This whole episode did. Not because it's bad, because I actually really enjoyed the X-Files, but the pacing of it's a fairly slow episode, and I don't know why this specific shot, I'm sure, has been directly pulled from an X-Files episode.
Yeah, and I feel like that idea of, I mean, it reminds me of The Shining, like where he fills a page up with, all work, no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
So it even goes back to that. So I think it's just like, again, it's a bit of a trope. So Lainey like turns off her screen and then that starts to come up. So it's very, ooh, who turned on the screen? Who's typing? Like, oh.
It's cool. We already know it's a ghost. Like, you can reiterate it, but like, we already know.
Yeah, exactly. Dean is like frantically like at the laptop researching something. Sam informs Dean that he was just on the phone with Lainey and that she was spooked by her mum. Dean doesn't seem interested. He's just like, oh, that sucks. Like, yeah, whatever. Sam asks what he's doing, and Dean's like, okay, I think Dad's right. Like, I think the demon is here, and says check it out. And it's like weather reports. Supposedly demonic omens have been happening everywhere that they've been for the past 2 weeks. And Sam's like, what? Like, no, these didn't happen. And Dean's really dismissive. He's like, well, when did you start studying meteorology? It's like the things that happened, you can, like with the demonic omens, which again, that gets dropped. Mm-hmm. That gets dropped real fast. Like, I feel like after this season, it's no longer a thing.
I think it continues up to Lucifer. I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like Detroit, and then basically never again.
But it's things that are noticeable. And like, I know Ash is no longer in the picture, so he was the one who was tracking all of this stuff before. Mm. Someone is.
I'm super confused by this because, like, Dean says there's like lightning storms and stuff and all these demonic omens, but like, where is he getting this information from? Like, how is this information appearing, or is he just connecting dots that aren't there? And I'm guessing it's the second one because Sam's confused about, oh, this hasn't happened. I guess it's trying to show how much a hold these phone calls are having over Dean, that he's managing to basically pull something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. But again, it's very out of character for him to do that. I mean, he generally does take less convincing than Sam that things are happening. That's true. Mm-hmm. But I feel like finding something out of nothing is not really in Dean's character.
I think you're right. Yeah, I do think you're right. It's not...
It would have made more sense if he says here, like, oh, Dad says there's been a lot of demonic sightings on the places that we've been, and I'm trying to find reports of them, and like there are some things that are kind of weird here, but something's not adding up. Mm-hmm. But there's no point in this where any kind of like doubt is planted in Dean's mind. I don't know, it feels odd to me because I feel like he should be questioning this more. It is I know what they're trying to say. They're trying to say like Dean's so focused on the fact that his dad could be alive and that he could get him out of this, that he's doing everything he can to make it real. But he's such a pessimist normally. I don't understand why he would just go with it on this. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and especially again, even referencing this episode, mm-hmm. He's not even into breaking the deal at this point.
Yeah.
When he was saying to Sam, we have nothing, so I'm going to go do my job.
Yeah.
I don't think Dean would drop a job to fix himself. He's not selfish in any way in that way to do that.
Yeah, but does he still think there's a job here, or does he think it's legit and that people are just calling from beyond the grave? And this is what I mean, like, he's not questioning it enough, because why is he the one that's managing to get a phone call that's not causing his death? It's all very mm-hmm. weird. I maybe there is something else going on that's not fully explained in this episode, like there's some kind of psychic component to this. That's the only explanation I can find, because it is out of character. And I mean, maybe that is intentional to show the hold that John still has over Dean, but I don't like it. I don't like if that is true, because I feel like we had the resolution of this. I feel like he's gotten over some of his issues with John and become more autonomous, and I don't like seeing this like slippy slide back into that. But it is what it is. Supernatural.
It is. Like we'll come across these episodes more. Like I feel like more of these like weird, unexplainable character shifts happen.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I mean, it happens anyway because obviously we get different writers doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
But this is such a stark difference, and it's a stark difference regarding John. And they've always had a pretty like standard reaction to John. You can always pretty much predict how they're going to act.
Yeah,
And this isn't lining up to the character portrait that we have of Dean. So it doesn't sit right.
I think that's it perfectly. Yeah.
Even with the idea of hope,
Yeah.
we know that Dean doesn't hope. As horrible as that sounds, like he doesn't, and he never really does. Not for himself, and like, yeah.
I think Sam says it later on, but I mean, I'll say it now because it makes sense too. He refers back to Dean having faith in John, like he uses the word faith, which we've talked about before. You know, Dean used to have faith in John. That really did go after John died, and he left that message for Dean that he would have to kill Sam. And we saw him go through that with Sam and say, like, you know, he's made me question everything. Like, should I have faith in him? And did he know what he was doing? And all this kind of stuff. We saw that journey, and I don't know. This episode just makes me a bit sad for Dean. It's like, yeah. I mean, I've said it before. Like, maybe it is just because it's the end of the line and he's holding on to anything at all. But how depressing is this?
Yeah, it's not a hopeful episode really, especially with some of the themes in it too.
Yeah.
So Dean hands over like a piece of paper along with all the other reports. Apparently John had given Dean an exorcism to kill a demon, not just send it back to hell, but kill it.
It definitely is an exorcism, okay? There's just no evidence that it can kill a demon.
No evidence it can't.
Come on,
Hey, as far as I know, the only one of us that's actually been to hell is Dad, okay? Think maybe he picked up a couple of tricks down there, like which exorcisms work?
Maybe it does, okay? Look, I hope it does too, but we just gotta be sure.
Why aren't we sure?
Because I don't know what's going on around here, Dean.
And essentially it's a scam, or not a scam, but there's no evidence that it kills a demon. Dean's response is like, no, there's no evidence that it can't.
You're telling me that old Sammy Winchester, I can say an exorcism backwards and it might just work, isn't willing to try this weird exorcism. You know, like this is the reversal of roles, right? Because normally Sam would be like, well, might as well try it. If it's an exorcism already, like, might as well try it. I don't know.
I do wonder if Sam's trying to get the idea that like it's too convenient that the demon that has been who has the contract is here when we're trying to deal with ghosts. He's
just trying to temper his expectations, you know, and say like, look, this doesn't look legit. Chill it for a second.
Right. And I mean, Dean tries to justify it, reason it, by saying, hey, well, Dad was in hell for so long, like he might have picked up a few tricks. Sounds plausible, but I don't think demons are talking about what exorcisms work against them. Like, do you remember old Jim? Remember that 15th century exorcism? Well, that killed him.
Just discussing openly. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, we know that there is a demon network because they all talk about Sam and Dean.
Right, exactly. Oh my goodness. Like you said, Sam says, like, you know, maybe it does work. I sure hope it does, but we got to be sure. And Dean's like, why aren't we sure? Like, why can't he have, you know, faith in this, essentially? And you're right, he completely dismisses the case they're on because Sam's saying, like, there's stuff going around here, you know, people are killing themselves about these ghosts that are talking to them on the phone. There's a girl who's scared, and Dean says,
wow, man, a couple of civvies are freaked out by some ghosts. Newsflash, Sam, people are supposed to be freaked out by ghosts.
Where is this coming from?
And it's your job to help them not be freaked out by it anymore by getting rid of said ghosts.
Yeah, and that was also John's attitude, you know. He was the whole... He wouldn't have been stopping this case, I don't think. I don't know, though. I say that, I don't know. If there was a lead on Yellow Eyes, John would probably drop a case.
He would defer a case, I think.
Yes, you're right. blog about it in his journal and then come back later or leave it to Sam and Dean to do, mop up his mess. Sam asks if he knows where to find the demon, and Dean is getting really angry and says he's waiting for the call. So he's clearly been waiting for a while because he's just been getting more and more frustrated about it. And so Sam's leaving and said that he's going to go talk to Lainey because she's freaked out. And Dean makes a horrible comment about
Chris Hansen.
Yeah, the whole to catch a predator deal. Like, let's just not even go there. So Sam leaves, and Dean's shouting after him. That's basically saying, like, how, why are you leaving? We're trying to break this demon deal. Dad's about to call us with this information, and you're not helping.
The man is dead, and you're still butting heads with the guy.
That is not what this is about.
Then what is it?
The fact is, we got no hard proof here, Dean. After everything, you're still just going on blind faith.
Yeah, well, maybe. Maybe that's all I got, okay?
And they're having like a full-blown argument now. And he says here what I alluded to earlier. The fact is we've got no hard proof here, Dean. After everything, you're still just going on blind faith. And Dean says, yeah, well, maybe, that's all I got, okay. I was like, I don't like it.
I mean, Sam pleads with Dean here and says, just don't go anywhere until I get back. Which I think is a fair thing to do, because he's not asking him, because they're already waiting for the address, right? Yeah. Sam wants to finish the case that they've started, which is fair. So all he's saying is like, don't go anywhere until I come back and we can do this together. Yeah. That's how I took it.
Too. Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, communication's not a thing because Dean doesn't take it that way. Also, they're following the formula of season 3, which is them like splitting up to go do other things. So this is a split up moment.
I mean, this is it. Yeah. The argument is same old, like, but it's kind of the other way around in that it's normally Dean accusing Sam of having faith, but this is kind of a reversal of that. Mm-hmm. The problem is they have faith in different things, Yeah. I think Sam thinks that kind of... I do think Sam kind of thinks, like, good will always out, Like, eventually, karmic retribution, everything will kind of sort itself out in the end. Whether or not that involves him but it will all sort itself out. Whereas Dean kind of, I always felt, thinks that he's the karmic retribution. He needs to sort everything out.
Yeah. That's Big Brother energy right there.
Right, exactly.
So we are now back at Lainey's house and Sam's talking with Lainey. And so Sam asks, what did your mother say? And Lainey responds by saying that she wanted to see me, so I thought I'd have to go to the cemetery, but that didn't work. And then she started to ask me to do things. Sam says, what sort of things? She responds, bad things. We then cut to her little brother, whose name is Simon, and he's like playing, and then his toy phone starts to ring. The way he answers it is really sweet. Like, he's obviously like overheard maybe his dad talking.
Yeah.
Because he says, hello, Simon Greenfield speaking.
It's very cute.
Which I think is quite adorable. And it's his mum on the phone.
I have a question.
Yes.
How?
I don't know.
Because don't we find later on that the thing that's doing this is like using the specific like phone lines? So how?
I don't know.
How
Amy.
the toy phone, and also how did they get through the one that had been ripped out of the wall? It makes no sense. I'll bring it up again later when we find out what's doing this. But I thought about this now, and I was like, I don't think this makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Bad writing. That's how it makes sense. We're back at the motel room and Dean receives a phone call with the address. We go back to Lainey's room. Sam needs details as to what's happened, like the bad things that the ghost wanted her to do. Lainey's mother's ghost asked her to go to the medicine cabinet and take all of the sleeping pills. Mm-hmm. She asked, why would my mum want me to do that? And then she says, I mean, just so I could come to her. And that triggers something in Sam.
What'd you say?
She wanted me to come to her.
No. How did she say it exactly?
Come to me. Like 1,000,000 times.
And then Sam is like, Lainey, that's not your mother.
Great Sam impression. I did write a note here that I should have brought up earlier, but like Sam is rocking like very good like Spencer Reid hair in this episode.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do see it. Yeah. I didn't like it when they cut his hair like really short in the later season. Like they gave him like a cauliflower kind of shaped head. thing going on.
Yeah, I agree.
I was into that.
I quite like it in this episode. It's kind of flicky. Let's say it's meant to read. We come back to Dean, and he has all his stuff from the trunk. His duffel bag is back. This is where I noticed it. Again, Sam is going back, cutting between them. Sam is with Lainey. He says, don't do anything. Basically the same thing he said to Dean, like, stay here, don't touch anything. And as they go down the stairs, they realise Simon's not about anymore. We see Simon, and he's like in a busy street. It's like every parent's nightmare of their child just wandering into the street, and there's like cars just dodging him. No one makes any efforts to slow down, like until the truck at the end, but it's wild.
It's American driving, unfortunately.
Right? But we eventually see like a large truck's gonna like hit him, but luckily Sam manages to like drag this boy out of the way, which is very heroic. I loved it. Good moment. That was a good moment in the show. In between all of this action, we've seen Dean making holy water, spraying a devil's trap in this random house that he has found, which presumably was the address that John sent him to. Doing all the typical stuff that we have seen them do to prepare for a demon attack. Sam rings him.
Dean, it's not Dad.
What is it?
A crocata.
Is that a sandwich?
Subcontinent scavenger, mimics loved ones, whispers, come to me, then lures you into the dark and swallows your soul.
And we just see Sam on the phone in his car, because he said, Dean, it's not Dad. And Sam says it's a crocata? Crocata?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go with that. Croquet. Croquette?
No, because it's got an A at the end. If it was an E, then yes.
I'll do fair. Dean asks, is that a sandwich? And I'm like, I can see why he would think that. But a crocata. So it doesn't just kill you, eats your soul. Which I feel like should be a bigger deal, that they should make more deal out of, considering how important souls are later on. But again, they didn't know. Dean says, hey, don't these things live in filth? There was another, what was the one in Everybody Loves the Clown? Was that the same thing? It wasn't, was it? But it was a similar vibe.
Yeah, similar vibe. No, it was the same thing. It lived in garbage.
Yeah, but it wasn't the same. It was like some kind of genie, wasn't it?
Thing. I don't remember
what
it was.
It definitely wasn't because it could turn invisible and stuff. It definitely wasn't a crocata.
There was a reason why I was laughing. Oh, I was laughing. I was like, well, this is the answer to their issue. Have Dean have this crocata eat his soul. You won't go to hell then.
Do you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. Huh. No, let's explore this for a second. Because there are other monsters in Supernatural that eat your soul. So do you think if a monster had eaten Dean's soul, do you think the demons would have had to kill the monster to release the soul? Or does the soul go somewhere else? Because you can't just keep consuming souls. We saw what that did to Cass.
This is true. But so the thing is, with an angel though, they're not supposed to consume souls, right?
So what you're saying is the crocata is also digesting the souls.
Yes. So after this episode, the people that got killed, their souls were returned? No.
That's true.
Their souls no longer exist because they've been consumed.
You're completely right. Sam could have saved Dean from the torment of hell by just letting this crocata eat his soul, and then he would have just, I don't know, eternal nothingness. Oh my gosh.
Solutions. You always got to look for them solutions, people. There's always an answer.
Outside the box thinking, that is, and I love it.
Well, we haven't seen it yet, but soulless people exist in this universe.
That's true. And to be fair, all the people that he'd taken the soul from so far had died first, so we didn't have to deal with the soulless aspect of this, but could have just taken Dean's soul, and then we would have been left with the soulless Dean. Look, the possibilities. Making this episode better for ourselves.
Yes. Like I said, looking for solutions. That's silly. So yeah, it's these things live in filth, so they figured that it was probably the Stewie guy because his workstation was a mess.
If people hunted me based on how dirty my desk is, they would have come for me a long time ago, because at the moment it's not Stewie levels of dirty, but I have a lot of glasses and cups on my desk.
I have a lot of stuff. I don't have a lot of food stuff. We are outside of the phone company and it's nighttime in the car park. And Sam creeps up to Stewie and he basically attacks Stewie. Or he's about to. Like, he's like threatening him. But then Stewie's like, oh, wait, no, mister, don't kill me. And Sam's like, I know how to kill you. He's very much Batman.
I thought we established that he was Spider-Man. I'm sorry.
You can be multiple. Stevie's responding in a way that Sam's not really, like, he's confused by, because he's like, if they're overcharging you for call waiting, I can fix that. I'm your friend. And so he's like, wait, what? And then the manager from earlier comes up behind Sam and bops him over the head, and then bops Stewie over the head.
He was originally very pleased to see him, and then, he was like, nope. Inside the phone company, Stewie and Sam are tied to chairs. I thought this was very reminiscent of last episode, Ghostfacers, where he's with Corbett. And, Stewie's crying and saying, like, I'm really sorry for whatever I did. Sam's kind of shouting, like, don't do it, etc. Just like he was before as well. And then we see the manager, whose name is Clark. That's what Stewie called him as he shouted out to him before he hit him in the last scene. He leans over him and presses a knife to Stewie. They kind of both plead for him, but then Clark kills Stewie. I was having this discussion again with Annabelle, and I was talking about this and said, I think this is Sam's hell, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That he's tied up, not able to help anybody and having to watch somebody die that he can't save. It happened in the last episode in almost exactly similar circumstances, and now it's happening here. We've kind of already said that Sam's hell is not being able to save Dean, but it seems like it's kind of extended into not being able to save anybody, unless Stewie and Corbett are just mirrors of Dean that he's having to see die over and over again, just like in Mystery Spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have issues with this death. We'd always already brought it up a little bit, with the stereotype that they using a minority person, a person of color, and then this on-screen death is very unpleasant.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's as bad as when Dean stabbed the demon in that episode, like in the back. I can't remember. It's this season. Oh, the Malakarif, blah, blah, blah.
Malleus Maleficarum.
That's the one. But then, I don't know. I feel like they didn't have to show him being stabbed in the heart.
I feel that too. I think you're right. I don't know. The thing is, we said it earlier, it was a negative stereotype that they then killed him off. Just a lack of kind of, respect generally.
And care. Yeah. It wasn't good.
It wasn't great.
And then we see the Clark, like his jaw dislocates and teeth come out of his face, and he sucks the soul out of Stewie. Like, we see it like come out of his mouth, which I thought looked really weird. Like, that whole acting of it was like, do with what you can, I suppose. Sam says, my last call with Dean, that was you led me here. What was his last call?
Well, he spoke to Dean in the car, and they were saying about basically it was Sam telling Dean that it wasn't John, it was the Kolkata, and that it lived in filth, etc. So it was at the phone company. So yeah, it kind of led him there, which means that Dean doesn't know that it's not John, because it wasn't him that he was speaking to. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, because it was when you mentioned that we didn't see Dean, I was like, I swear we did, but yeah, we didn't see Dean, and that should have been a giveaway. Yeah, it should. But it's they have conversations all the time in the car with one-sided, so it's not out of character or out of the scope of the show. Yeah, I kind of do like the unhinging the jaw as well of this monster. It just reminds me of Leviathan a bit, and I'm feeling a bit nostalgic for Leviathan these days. I don't know why. I was expecting him to bite his head off. I forgot about the whole soul-sucking thing, and I saw the unhinging jaw, and I was like, he's going to bite his head off. I forgot they don't really do decapitation shit in Supernatural. They hadn't really mastered it, so they don't do it a whole bunch like they do later on. We got some vampires, all their heads are coming off. Exactly, right? Because they did get it down to a fine art of decapitating people on Supernatural, but not yet. Clark says,
Some calls I make, some calls I take, but you have to admit I had you fooled for a while with all that Edison phone crap. So he says that he led them on that wild goose chase to go look at Edison's phone. Okay, fine. That is an okay explanation for why that scene was in there. But he kind of like leans against the phone exchange to show what he's doing, does not explain how he's managed to get a phone call through a toy telephone still, or through the one that was disconnected from the wall. If it was going through like the phone, I don't know, the waves, I don't know, but like even the toy, why the toy phone, Annabelle? This is really bothering me. This is really bothering me.
What doesn't make sense is like he does it and he gets like, he's obviously got a look of pleasure on his face.
Yeah.
Right? That's not his bread and butter. It's the souls,
it's
right?
It's the soul thing. Like,
I don't think, maybe it is because, the explanation is like, well, so later on, we hear him talk about like, he would have to wait forever for people to come. It's almost like part of the hunt for him is this, because they recognize him as a crocotta because of the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think after hundreds of years they would find another way of saying something. So maybe it is just like... But then this next whole section doesn't make sense as to why he would get their soul, because he doesn't say it in this way. None of the characters in this next scene say it this way, but he's still saying like, I'm killing your brother, or maybe I'm killing another guy. See how it goes. It's like, so you're just killing people now? You're not even going to take their souls?
Well, is he just maybe he's just a bad dude. I mean, a lot of the monsters have some kind of like survival instinct behind it, like that's how they have to eat or whatever, but this guy is maybe just a bad dude. I mean, you're right, maybe it's the thrill of the hunt and like being able to manipulate people that has him like excited now.
This begs the question then, right? So he's in charge of all the phone calls that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
He's having phone sex with a grandma.
Oh my god, that's true. So we cut to a police locker room and we see a man get a phone call, and it's a little girl. He says, I thought we weren't going to call anymore. So this is showing that this is one of these weird phone calls from the crocotta. And the girl is saying that she knows the person who killed her, and tells this guy where he is. And so he kind of like hangs up the phone. Oh, he's at their house. Yeah. So the guy hangs up the phone and kind of like looks all Punisher-y, like, yeah, I'll take him down. Back at the phone company again, Clark gets the knife from Stewie. Sam says, mimicking Dean's one thing, but my dad, that's a hell of a trick. And Clark says, well, once I made you two as hunters, it was easy. I found Dean's number, then your number, then your father's number, then emails to voicemails, everything. You see, people think that stuff gets erased, but it doesn't. You'd be surprised how much yourself is just floating out there waiting to be plucked. So I guess this is a commentary on how much information you leave about yourself, which feels out of place in the modern era because, like, it's so much worse now. Yeah,
I know. This is like the beginning of social media in this era.
Jeremy Carver was trying to warn us, y'all. Like,
yeah, exactly.
This is all just a commentary on, like, don't leave your information places, and little did we know.
Well, I mean, remember, you were not supposed to talk to strangers on the phone, not supposed to give your address to people on the phone, you're not supposed to get in strangers' cars. Mm-hmm. Every time I get a lift, that's exactly what I just did.
Yeah, that's so true. So Sam, says Dean's not going to fall for it, he's not going to kill that guy. And Clark said, then the guy kills him. So he set up like a situation where it's like kill or be killed for Dean. We go back to the house where Dean is, and this guy arrives because we kind of see his car headlights. And, Dean's getting ready. He's got his holy water. There's some noises from the back door and the front door, so Dean's not sure what to do. But then the back door slams open and there's a rifle fired at him. Dean manages to get out the way. And there's like this whole scene was so dark, I had no idea what was going on other than there were gunshots and, like, Dean was moving out of the way of them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a typical fight between what he would think a demon and Dean would be. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that he doesn't get to confirm that because he's holding the jug of holy water about to throw it on him, but obviously he gets knocked away and, like, starts to spill. Mm-hmm. So now the whole thing is to get him into the room where he sprayed the devil's trap. They get into like a pretty good fight, and then the officer goes down, mm-hmm. and Dean is like properly kicking him in the stomach. Pretty brutal. Which makes it really confusing for the scene when they come back, because we go back to the phone company.
Yeah.
And Clark continues his rant about like how technology has made his job a lot easier. You know, before he would have to hide in the woods for weeks, whispering to people, trying to draw them out. They had a community. They looked out for each other. I'd be lucky to eat 1 or 2 souls a year. Now, when I'm hungry, I simply make a phone call. You're also connected, but you've never been so alone. And I was like, yeah, he saw where this internet thing was going.
I am also kind of sick of this whole technology is bad rant. I've heard it so many times now. And also, like, it's true, but it's not true. Oh, you know, you've never been so alone. Well, I have more friends on the internet than I do in, like, real life. I mean, and I have a fair few, you know, real life friends. But, you know, I also have very deep and meaningful friendships with people on the internet. I don't feel lesser in any way.
No, and it shouldn't. I mean, obviously, the beginnings of the internet were dodgy as all hell.
Yeah, that's true.
But, like, as our societies have grown around the internet, we understand how to use it.
Just be safe on the internet, kids. Don't give your personal information to people you barely know. And that can be people you've still known for months. Don't give them your personal information, especially if you're under 18. That's my but technology is bad rant.
Yeah, that if you're under the age of 18, definitely just be careful. Talk to an adult about things. Like nobody's ever going to get mad at you for the things that you do on the internet. Yeah,
that's so true. It's nice, Annabelle. Good advice.
Just find someone you can talk to about it. A person you know in real life, not an internet person.
A trusted adult.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Clark tries to eat Sam, but Sam's managed to escape. Woohoo! And they kind of do a little scrapple, little struggle. But Clark eventually gets the knife again and runs at Sam. But then we cut back to, it's so exciting.
Yeah, so exciting. So this is what I was saying. It doesn't really make sense. Like, the guy was down, right? He was out for the count. Being kicked in the stomach 3 to 4 times, I'm pretty sure you're not getting back up anytime soon. But they're suddenly going through, like, the study door. Mm-hmm. They kind of go back and forth. Dean flips over the carpet to, you know, look, this is where the devil's trap is, if you didn't know. And the man's like, what is this? Like, he's getting all confused. Dean's like, this is your funeral. And he starts his exorcism, which he still hasn't learned. Oh, no, because it's the new one.
It's a new one. That's why he has an excuse this time.
Yeah, because he's got this, like, little piece of paper, which, again, it is so dark in there. How is he even seeing this paper? Like, I don't know how good his eyesight is. Apparently it's very good.
Night vision. Just perfect night vision.
Yeah, exactly. And the man is like, did you do this to my daughter? Because the guy walks out of the devil's trap. Because he's not a demon. So, of course, it doesn't make any sense. And obviously this man thinks, like, his daughter was killed for some sort of sacrifice.
Like, this is it. I mean, I'd be interested to know how this is reported to the police later, because the description that he gives would be, wait, dead serial killer Dean Winchester? I thought he died in that helicopter explosion, and now he's trying to exorcise you in some weird cult. Because this guy has big evidence. He has the, like, spray painted devil's trap on his floor. I mean, I'm sure they've seen that before in conjunction with Sam and Dean. It can't be a coincidence, but we're just gonna brush that under the rug and not talk about it again. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. We come back to Sam and Clark. They're fighting, and it looks like it's going in Clark's favor. And then just before, Sam gets stabbed, Clark gets stabbed on this, like, hook thing. And I was like, oh, why does this remind me of a certain piece of rebar?
Can you not? Cheers, though. Cheers, babe. Cheers, babe.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. Same thing.
It's the same. It's the same.
It's gross. And then we're back with Dean and the dad. And because Dean was taken by surprise, he's now on the floor getting, like, beaten. And the man's just shouting, like, he was 9 years old. She was 9 years old. Dean's like, stop, I didn't do it. You gotta believe me. And essentially, Dean gets out of that by using the rifle to smack him in the head. That's it. Like, we don't really see a resolution to that fight. Like, he's not really knocked out. He's just dazed. Because the man is just, like, crying on the floor. And then Dean's like, sorry, I didn't kill your daughter. He's like, what are you doing here? And Dean's like, I don't know. That I don't know was heartbreaking. I will say that.
What are you doing here?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
This is the moment Dean realises he's been tricked, betrayed, etc. By someone who wasn't his dad, using John to manipulate him. And I think he's devastated. It's bad. You're right, we go back. And this is the theme of the episode. This is the whole reason to watch this episode if you're going to bother watching it. It's this last scene. Because we get Dean and Sam back in the motel room. They've both won their respective fights. I guess the guy's not calling the cops on him because they're staying in that motel room. It is a bit unresolved, but we'll let it go. Dean's holding a cloth to his eye that's hurt. Sam is comes out of the bathroom as well because he's also hurt. And they kind of joke with each other.
I see they improved your face.
Yeah, right back at you.
Dean says, so crocati, right? Because Sam's clearly explained to him in the meantime what's gone on. He obviously has lore on this too, because he's like, that would explain the flies. So he clearly knows. Sam apologises and says, look, I'm really sorry that it wasn't Dad, because I think he knew how much this meant to Dean. Dean kind of also apologises for basically being an ass this whole episode to Sam, being like, I gave you one hell of a time on this one. But that Sam was ultimately right. And then Dean.
I wanted to believe so badly that there was a way out of this. I mean, I'm staring down the barrel at this thing. Hell. For real, forever. And I'm just...
Yeah.
I'm scared, Sam. I'm really scared.
I can't with Dean crying. It makes me cry. I can't do it. And he admits to Sam that he's really scared.
Mm-hmm.
Sam's also crying. There's a whole man tears going on here. It's good stuff. And this is what Dean says. He says, I guess I was willing to believe anything, the last act of a desperate man, which is what we said, that he was willing to believe that John was real despite all evidence saying that it wasn't him.
There's nothing wrong with having hope, Dean.
Hope doesn't get you jack squat. I can't expect Dad to show up with some miracle at the last minute. I can't expect anybody to, And the only person that can get me out of this thing is me.
And me.
Good. It's almost like he reverts back to his character. This is Dean. This line is Dean.
Mm-hmm.
The only person who can get this out of this thing is me. Now, this is a really interesting line, personally, I feel, because when Dean does eventually go to hell, I think this stays with him, that he thinks the only person that can save him is him.
Mm-hmm.
And when that becomes less and less true for him, that's when he gives up.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, it's super sad.
It is. I mean, how long can you believe in yourself for until the contrary comes up? I don't mean that in a sense of your everyday life. This is obviously a very different situation. Always believe in yourself. You can do it. But yeah, because he's in hell for 40 years and he's probably tried every day for 40 years. I don't know how many days that is. It's a lot of days.
It's a lot of days. This is what I mean. It's just, I think they are starting to get the building blocks of Dean's mentality as he goes to hell. And I think this is an important line here. They end this episode on a joke.
Of course they do.
And me.
What?
Deep revelation, having a real moment here. That's what you come back with. And me.
Do you want a poem?
Moment's gone.
This whole little bit. I did actually really like this, to be fair. I did like it. And they kind of end by Dean passing Sam a beer and they watch TV. So, yeah.
It had a very supernatural Christmas sort of ending to it.
It did, yeah.
Chilling by the TV, drinking a beer, and trying to forget the day that they've just had.
I can relate.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be doing the same thing to forget this. Actually, I don't need anything to forget this episode because it was that forgettable.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, there were good moments. There were okay moments in this in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the only sort of takeaway from this episode in that last sort of epilogue. And it just, I don't know, it didn't do it. Didn't do it for me. I didn't like it. I could not watch this episode again. It's fine.
I agree. As much as I do like the last epilogue of this, the last little conversation that they have, I do feel it is very like, this is the moral of the story, guys. After quite a poor episode, that they kind of had to sum it up because I don't know what else do you take away from this. So yeah, it's a shame. You're right, I think, in that the writer's strike probably had a big role to play in this episode. I'm hoping the next 2 episodes play out the way I remember now. I don't remember them being particularly good, I'll be honest. I only remember the final scene from episode 16. So, I mean, we're in it.
We're in it. We are in it. Well, so the next episode is a pretty important one, which is Time is on My Side. And we are concluding Bella's story. Oh, well, yeah, we all know that she doesn't make it past season 3. So,
yeah.
So we're concluding her story. Yeah. I'm interested to see where this goes. Oh, Rufus is in this episode. Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, just up my estimation. All right, exciting stuff. We can look forward to that one.
Yes. I love Rufus. So yeah, that was this episode. So thank you to the Pixel Agora for our podcast art. Very much appreciate it. If you would like to own a piece of that art, or the logo, you can check out our Redbubble store. We have lots of different things with lots of different designs. Any purchases with our logo on it, a portion of that profit goes to the Pixel Agora. So support your local internet artist. You can also find us on all social medias. We're most active on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. So send us a message and we'll try and get back to you.
So this week in Purgatory, we received a phone call from an unknown number, but like any self-respecting millennial, we just ignored it. So hopefully next time we can find our way out. Bye.